bearded dudes on a Saturday?
Well, I mean,
Well,
obviously
with
I
that,
do. I've done
well,
it.
with that, we open up the show to episode 28 of Just Another G.I. Joe Show. Us bearded guys want to hang out with each other. I'm Mike, your host. I'm joined with quite a few people tonight. We got Fred from Joe Battle Lines, Rick from Cybercast, and then we also have our special guest, James Cavanaugh, and Dan. Dan, I'm going to butcher your last name. I don't know how I want to pronounce it. How do you pronounce your last name, Dan?
Klingon.
Klingon Smith.
Okay, Clinton Smith. Both of these gentlemen are Kickstarter organizers. And if you have purchased before in the past, you know there is the rank and files 1 through 3 and 1.1 revised. And currently the Kickstarter for rank and file 2.2 and 3.2 are live. And then Dan also has his Kickstarter 3.75 Joe's volume 5 going on as well. So really we'll just get into we're both, I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now, and Kavanaugh, you're down to a week, and Dan, you're down to 8 days, and 64%, 58%, y'all are past the 50% mark. Tell us, start off with Kavanaugh. Tell us about your Kickstarter, what's different in 2.2 and 3.2, and just tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks. And I've been guilty of doing the same thing. I'm always 2.2 and 3.3. It's 2.1 and 3.1, just a 0.1 reversion. Just for anybody out there, only if anybody's wondering, well, what happened to 2.1 or 3.2 or 2.2? And yeah, who's on first?
Oh gosh.
Anyway, so yes, I just went ahead and added the 0.1 revision on these things in case I ever do any other revisions. I have no clue how these things are going to take off, but yeah, volume 2 is sold out and volume 3 is practically gone. I went ahead and just lumped them together as one Kickstarter. I figured if you're going to do one or you're going to do two, you're going to do all three is the short answer, and we'll see how that goes. But it's basically it is the volumes. You're aware of the figures. From the Rise of Cobra. Volume 2 starts with the Rise of Cobra and ends with the Pursuit of Cobra. And then Volume 3 starts with the 30th anniversary / Renegades, works its way into Retaliation and the 50th, and then adds in the basic assortment, which is the technical term I decided on based on looking at the packaging and whatnot, but it's basically the Dollar General figures is the way we refer to them all. And that's it. That gets us up to 2016 because unfortunately we didn't have any product in 2017. So any sort of update, revision, bringing them all together, because these books were published Volume 1 was published in 2015, Volume 2 was published in 2016, and Volume 3 was published in 2017. That, we're learning stuff every day. So I'm going through them, I'm error correcting, and I'm revising them to make them current for today's, climate and understanding of things. It's one of those things where, we live in a digital era. So if there's a change on web, you just go in there and change it and add a link and, connect all the dots. With paper, that is the setback, and that's what revisions are for. So here we are. No place I'd rather be.
As far as revisions, and I guess I would be one of the people who would ask this, what kind of revisions are you talking about? Is there something that was missed, a weapon or something of that nature, or is it strictly just something,
Yeah, there's a couple errors in there, If every little detail is a fact in an instance, then there's probably 100,000 instances
right
in these books. So even if I got 100 of them wrong, which I'm not aware that I did, that's less than a fraction of a percent. But there's a couple. I think the one that hit me the week after I saw, I published the book was Volume 3, the Firefly from Retaliation, the drone. I put in the wrong, because it was a black drone, black everything. I gave it the black missile. It was supposed to come with the red missile.
Okay.
And me wanting to be the cool guy and number the accessories, well, that just compounds the chance of an issue. But the most notable revision on the other side of the coin is the inclusion of the 25th or the 50th anniversary revision figures. Like when the 50th anniversary allowed us to get some great figures like Firefly, Blowtorch, Pursuit of Cobra Snake Eyes, Renegade Storm Shadow, which I think some of those were $50, $80 figures the day before Hasbro put them out. They were re-released. Well, now it's my responsibility as noted author guy to sit there and say, hey, these figures came out. If you open up my volume 2 book that I published in 2016, you're not going to know that they re-released some of these figures in the 50th. So I went back and retroactively incorporated that information, at least acknowledged it, so that when you're going through volume 2, you can say, oh, okay, well, this low light isn't the hard to find Pursuit of Cobra one because he's got the gold logo on his arm. This is the 50th one, and this is a $5 to $10 figure versus. I mean, I think the low lights plummeted, but he's still a rare figure. So if you're going for all these variations, you'll be able to visualize and connect the dots a little more adequately.
Mm-hmm.
And so with James is covering on the more modern side of the spectrum, then we have our other Kickstarter guest who's going back to the vintage era. And so, Dan, tell us a little bit about the latest volume 5 of 375 or 3 3/4 Joe, and kind of what can we expect from this volume?
Well, this volume, art wise and material wise, will be different than every other volume. So each volume, I try to make sure that I include a variety of characters and vehicles that were published or that were released back in 1994. So a little bit of variety over the years. What's going to be a little bit different in the beginning of the book. So if you recall, the first four books covered the history of G.I. Joe, which was put together by Kirk Bazigian. And one of my goals now, or what my goal is now, is to really explain thoroughly the process of what it took to create what we all love. So this first volume, or this fifth volume, I should say, is going to cover figure design. So it's going to go through detailing out, what these guys did back then. There's a couple images to kind of walk people through. So I tried to find a character that had a lot of variety as far as the different processes. So the Snow Serpent will be kind of described as far as sketches, and then figure source sheet
Nice.
to the presentation art. And then volume, I intend to pick up with the sculpting process, and then continue on. And there's going to be, I'm trying to figure it out. I have to figure out scientifically where I'm going to drag in the vehicle design process, and then try to find an equal medium where, some of the stuff, like with engineering, even though they're done differently, there's some processes that are the same. So I'm trying to marriage the two together eventually. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So my goal this year, I've had a lot of this written for years and years and years, but I don't have it all done. So my goal this year, before the next volume, or maybe when it's 2018, is to write the entire process from beginning to end. That way I have it. I have it on writing, and writing is just a matter of putting it together in a book. So
awesome,
nice. And whereas, like, and how many more? This is just a sort of a further down the road question, but also for your series, how many more volumes do you see coming?
Well, that's the infamous question I get all the time. Originally, I intended on 2 books that were going to be, a little bit thicker than what these are. But I'd say a year ago or so, maybe 8. But now, just with new material that's surfaced from people, I can probably go up to 10, 12 volumes, honestly. So,
wow.
Nice.
Because I'm really trying to show off as much as I can. I try not to hold back anything. So I don't know if that's smart or not, but for example, the first volume, I didn't have the final presentation art for Mutt and Junkyard, and I didn't have some of the final presentation art, which now I do, and I did try to feature it in volume 2. That way, anything that was missed in volume 1, I try to at least put a little bit of it in volume 2, just like a splash page in a sense. So if you have that, you'll see that. But I don't know. It's just as long as people want it, I'll continue to do it. I mean, this past year, I took kind of a breather and just did one. It's kind of, Person Con, and then getting this book together. My printer asked that I get it together by March. I had to put.
We're losing him a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Dan. I wasn't sure if that was me.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're cutting in and out, man. Well, then, while we're kind of sorting through that, I'll kind of go back to James for. Yeah, you're still cutting out, man.
You hear me?
So let me ask this, and we'll this is to both of you. We'll do James again first, and then Dan. Kickstarter, you guys are basically self-publishing these, and we know that this is kind of a downtime for Joe again in terms of product. But what has been your what's been the reaction you think in the fan community to these fan produced, and I shouldn't say fan produced as like it's a bad thing, but I'm using fan produced as something that was generated by someone who is very passionate about the subject matter. What's been the response to these fan produced volumes?
Yeah, well, before I begin, Fred, that's a pretty touchy term that we don't, as authors, appreciate. I just want to let you know. I'm just kidding.
Damn it, James!
Can you? We prefer collector initiatives. We gotta be. If you could please try to be a little more PC.
James is a noted author.
That'd be great.
How about just saying noted author?
Noted author. That's fine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm completely kidding. Don't get me started on. Get off topic. And honestly, you know what? And all that, just give me the gist of the question again. I sincerely apologize.
I'm just curious. Like, how do you guys feel like, again, in a time when we're not getting a lot of new Joe product? What do you think? What's been the fandom reaction to these to these volumes that you're putting out? And I mean, because you're both covering different ends of the spectrum for G.I. Joe.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and if it isn't obvious, we are not overlapping at all, hardly, in our product. If anything, I go out of my way to purposely, take.
I'm gonna move.
Okay, purposely encourage people to buy books from Dan and Carson and Mark Balamo and all that, because those guys are handling the history. So when you read my book, it's kind of like a level 101, 102 class. Well, I'm the subsequent. But in terms of reaction, it's always positive because they like seeing the stuff. They like seeing the covers. They like seeing the images. In terms of engagement, for me, that's hit or miss. It is. I think it's becoming more of a niche hobby than it was in, say, the heyday of, like in the early aughts, 2002, 2008. That might, in my opinion, I think it's just because everybody's getting married and they have kids and they're getting older, and there's only so much money you can donate to your hobby and your passion, and that's dwindling.
Unless you get divorced.
Well, unless you get divorced, they say it's cheaper to keep her, but I haven't. I don't know how to. I've never been married. Knock on wood, as I pound my forehead. to address that. But I will say, I mean, action figures are clearly the forefront of the hobby. Like there's no denying that. And then vehicles obviously are extremely close second. So once you're getting into our product, at least for me, I think we're on the high end of the secondary, but we're still secondary. Back in the day, you'd always want, you'd get the figure, but you'd want the catalog and you'd want the book to read about them and blah, 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 X, Y, Z. But at the end of the day, it still takes a second note to the figures. And to really answer your question, Fred, I mean, I think you can kind of see it in your own, hobbies and engagement of the hobby, that if there aren't any new figures out, then people talking about Joe diminishes. And as a byproduct, I think there's a slightly less level of engagement and involvement. Dan, what are your thoughts? Or go ahead, Fred. Sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's exactly. I was just Dan. What's been your? What do you think the fandom reaction to your series has been?
It's a bit positive. I mean, and I don't know where I'm at right now. Can you see me, hear me?
You're perfect, man.
Okay, I moved rooms, so I'm closer to the computer and everything. So, can you see me or not see me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'll try not to go too close. It's been positive. I think it's a very niche market with my book. Some people care about the history, some people don't. So, as far as learning about the characters and that, but I mean, here's how I look at it. I've always been what got me into collecting was primarily the artwork. So I love the package art. I love everything about the package art. So to see all the preliminaries that it took to get there, that's something I've fallen in love with. So I hope to gain, if anybody who's been a fan of the artwork and whether it's packaging or, whatnot, whether it's, maybe they like the dioramas that were set up in some of the catalogs, whatever the case may be. I try to really showcase that art and the history. I mean, there's some really interesting facts I try to present to people, and but I do think it's a smaller market than some other things that are out there, which is fine. I just hope people enjoy what they see and read and learn something new every time. It's almost like kind of like a history book, I guess, in some ways. But I mean, I'm pulling information straight from the sources, and then also straight from the memos and stuff like that. So, but no, I mean, I think it's great. I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it, and if people didn't enjoy it, it'd be hard to produce these. And I'm sure anybody doing a Kickstarter or books can vouch for that. So.
Oh, absolutely. I was joking with Dan. We were Skype or PMing the other day, and I said he told me to look up one of the figures in his volumes, and I had him literally within inches of me. And he kind of laughed. I said, "No, seriously." I shot him a photo. I said, "I don't even have my own books on my shelf."
and the funny thing is, neither do I. That mine is on my shelf either. So
I have Mark's Carson's and Dan's all right there, not mine.
Yeah, I don't have mine either on my own shelf. I have all my other. I think we both took a picture of our shelves, just showing each other. And just so everybody knows, our Kickstarters, it wasn't on purpose. If my printer didn't push this, I mean, I was going to go live April, had this done by May. So I talked to James right when I was about to launch. I said, "Hey, sorry, dude, I got to get going on this." But James and I will be together at JoeCon setting up. So
yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
Y'all have a booth together?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
It'll be fun.
Noted
Noted offers.
You can watch the Noted Author Off on Saturday. I think we have it at 3 p.m. No, I'm just kidding. two going, one come out. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, so here's the question I have: is that you both mentioned that you're doing a Kickstarter together. Now, before in the past, most Kickstarters are usually like 30 days, aren't they? Or do y'all set the days you want to have them for, or how's that work?
I usually go 2 weeks or so.
Okay, and then I would bow to Dan's judgment because I've only done the one, and I went 3 weeks. I obviously did a little research beforehand on Kickstarter, and I talked to Dan and Carson because they do them outright.
Mm-hmm.
But I beyond that, I really couldn't give you any rhyme or reason. It's just there is articles out there that'll tell you. You know what I mean? You don't want to go too long, or you don't want to go too
short.
Obviously, you don't want to go too short. There is some nuance and some strategy to it, but I figured 3 weeks would just give everybody a comfortable time.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks, I think's been pretty average for me as far as, you know. And like I said, I mean, before I had released fall and then spring and then fall and spring and you know, I kind of missed this fall. Now I'm here. So, and I talked to my wife and everything. I was like, you know, I may try to pound out number 6 here pretty soon. So,
Nice.
because once I get in the mode, and James, I'm sure you can speak to this. Once you get in book mode, you're in book mode. So I can do things pretty quick, and you know, you tend to forget things if you wait too long, and you know, doing things in Photoshop and stuff like that. So I'm still in kind of what I call book mode. So
Nice.
Some of my, you know, some of the pages have been built for years. I mean, it's just a matter of adjusting them accordingly to either new information I've acquired, new imagery I've acquired. You know, at some point I had 400, 500 pages completed, you know, when volume 1 hit. So a lot of this stuff has been done. It just wasn't, you know, to the point of final print. It was, you know, kind of a rough, you know, in the layout. So, but I'm sure, James, I'm sure you can attest to that and getting in that mode.
Oh, absolutely. If I notice an error or something that I don't like, or I want to change, if I don't do it immediately, it's gone. It's gone. You know? So, but this is the first time, actually, unfortunately, that I'm not hanging out with you guys and working on the book to kind of paint the picture of book mode. Like once I'm in the G.I. Joe mood, hanging out with my bros, you know, just bang out some photos and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question for both of you, and it'll probably be a different kind of answer from each of you because of the subject of your respective projects. What's the most interesting thing that you either discovered or rediscovered working on these projects?
Good, James.
Okay. I was going to say, Dan could probably go on for hours when dealing with the pre-prod. You know, that stuff's great. Mine are a little bit more on the nose. You know, it's just, I'm not trying to diminish my work, but it's also an asset. I'm giving you all what it is right in front of you in a concise format. But it's really just the little things. When you're sitting there and you're looking, there's, you know, I could photograph these figures. Well, the figures are straight down. I call it the dissecting table almost, you know, the way I'm looking at them and I'm moving them. But the vehicles, you know, there's a million ways I could shoot them, and just moving them around on the table. And as I'm shooting them or reshooting them, you know, you really start to discover the details and some of the nuances. You know, like for example, the Doom cycle, I discovered by looking at the pieces that it was, I mean, I kind of knew, but I didn't, that it was a tail end of Valor Venom DTC Robot Rebellion, just by looking at the back pegs and all that. Just to see how they put everything. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, so, you know, back in the day, they would hide different parts, you know, in some of the vehicles. You know, you hear about the Defiant and all those parts kind of being hidden. Have you found any of that in these modern day vehicles? I mean, I'm all my modern day is still in the package, so I don't know. I mean, do you find a lot of those hidden, either maybe like a reused part, or, you know, these just hidden, you know, I don't know what you want to call it. What's it called? Egg
hodgepodge, or
yeah, I can't think of the word right now.
Easter eggs.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, two authors and we Easter eggs.
And Easter's right around the corner, so Easter eggs. Like, do you find stuff like that?
Exactly. You know, I don't think so, and not, the short answer is not that I've noticed. And obviously, I'll eliminate all the reuse molds out of the equation and focus solely on, you know, new tooling. but I think that's because the processes differed so much.
Yeah.
And that would be, you know what, that would maybe I got reach out and find them, do a third revision. But talking to the guys as much as I did it at Joe Con and everywhere in between, they just didn't think that way. It was kind of from scratch, and they wanted to do something new. And the way they approach doing it, either it's 3D, so if they're doing a 3D file, well, then they're not going to utilize any of the parts.
Oh, that's true.
And I say that because Dan, you can, articulate what I'm about to say better, that all those parts were laying around. So if they didn't have to sit there and sculpt a wall, they could just build it out of cutting, 5 vehicles in half or in pieces and slapping it on there to get them home at 5 p.m. to go watch the ball game, their kids' ball game, then rock and roll, not the character.
I mean, back in the day, it was all kit bashing. So yeah, you make a good point. So
I think by now they skipped a lot of the styrene. I'm sure they did in some capacity in the very early stages, but just with all the technology that's out there, they didn't need to go through all the steps that you would see in Dan's books.
Yeah,
definitely.
Things have changed. So.
I mean, that's an interesting question, though. I will put a double down eye on things.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, and I think that's the thing. Respectfully, both processes are interesting. Where we've been and where we've come from there. So,
if you want a fun one, okay, that'll cross over between Dan and I. The 30th Sky Striker, I'm going to put that in my pile as new because they completely retooled it. But they clearly utilized old parts, i.e. Dan, and to the point where if you're like a super variation hunter on the vehicles, you can tell that as they revised the Sky Striker back in the 80s, that's a hodgepodge of 2 or 3 of the different revised Sky Strikers. Because they referenced the old tooling to build the new. But if you look at it, you're like, see this, the fuselage is version A and the nose is version B. And
they pulled a little bit of everything, huh? That's cool.
Yeah. Well, they had like 3 or 4, they took like 3 or 5 Sky Strikers and hacked them up and glued them all together into one finished product.
You own that prototype, right?
I do. I wish I did. That'd be a fun one.
So, Dan, what's the most interesting thing that you've discovered?
I mean, for the books themselves, because I've discovered. I've discovered a lot of friendships and the process itself. I mean, it's always interesting. But as far as specific things, I'd say the short fuse alternate head. Was probably something I'm pretty proud of as far as uncovering. With Declassified, they had announced the Stalker and the Breaker variants that, there's a lot of speculation as far as what those were. A lot of people thought, oh, these were heads that were sculpted for 82, canceled, and so forth. But I actually came across a memo, and in this memo, it talks about redoing some of the heads for 83. And so they had, Zap and Breaker, and then Short Fuse. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. And I'd come across a first shot of a head, and I couldn't figure out who it was. I mean, I talked to a lot of people in the community, Pat Stewart and stuff like that. I'm like, who is this? And he's like, I don't know. I've never seen that head before, ever. And, surely enough, it turned out to be Short Fuse. So, for that matter, I mean, it's pretty awesome to uncover a new, kind of answer the question as far as what those were and why they were produced, but at the same time, uncover a new character head, I guess, because they're not new character, but, so, I mean, that's pretty cool. But besides that, just like little information, I'm really into the information and seeing some of the preliminaries. It's too hard to really narrow it down, to be honest with you. Just
I
fun
was just going to interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to interject and say it's probably easier for you to say what you don't find interesting or mind blowing in your
Yeah,
because you're always discovering such wow.
It's just you discover a character, was supposed to come with an animal, or there was running changes on a character, or there's changes to their deco or something. So it's really interesting to see and read. I mean, and the memos are really interesting because I scour through them and I label them with little tags and I want to make sure I don't miss anything, as far as what I read, and that way I want to share it with everybody who's getting the book. So now they're in the know, and now you know.
And no one's half the battle.
I was waiting for somebody.
I was waiting.
Your Kickstarters, like I said, we have 7 days and 8 days on one. And I only really do the Kickstarters that fund G.I. Joe. What do you think? Is it towards the end of the run where you'll get more people signing up for it?
Good, James.
Okay. I mean, I'll go ahead and say yeah, but then I'm also kind of naive on this one because my first one funded in 4 days. So I've been spoiled rotten. I was spoiled rotten the first time in terms of the Kickstarter scene, and it did double. It was for one book, mind you, but I also think that it's because of the topic at large. It's the 25th anniversary is hands down the most relatable series in my scope because it looks like all the old vintage stuff that Dan covers. Now, and I say all that because I think it's easier for people to not contribute when they know that there'll be other copies available after completion of the Kickstarter. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. There's still that opportunity that it might not get funded and there won't be no book. Yeah. Do you make enough extra copies like you did previously, like you did?
I intend to, yes. This Kickstarter is indeed, well, both were to not only give the contributors the book that they clearly want, they're contributing, but then to have inventory for me to move forward in the next year or two, at least this JoeCon. And that's the same strategy that I'm applying this time. I need inventory for JoeCon so that everybody that wants a book can have one. So it is so there you go. It's kind of a catch-22. If you're holding out for me to complete my Kickstarter and then buy, you're rolling the dice on this one compared to my only other example in the trends. But if you contribute now, then you're guaranteed, and that's great, and everybody's happy. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I haven't contributed to every one of Dan's or Carson's Kickstarters because I've followed them, and by the time that I've seen them just be blown out of the water, I know it's being completed, and then I'm buying it right afterward. I own them all. I ideally like to buy them at JoeCon myself.
James usually buys.
But if they're in
I get James after a little tipsy, and he usually buys 2 of you. So.
Well, there you go. See, it's a trade-off. See, you don't get me right away, but you get me on the hustle afterwards.
He needs one for the bedroom and one for the kitchen. And
you know what? When I see Dan, when I see Dan's books, I do get a little tingly feeling.
One goes on his shelf and the other one goes in his other office.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Hey, that's where I do my critical thinking.
There you go.
Now, Dan, with yours, you're at like 68% or something like that, I think, and 64%, and you had 8 days. I've seen yours. I think your last one funded pretty fast, didn't it? Or do you remember?
It funded a couple days prior. I mean, I'll be honest, my books never fund that quickly. So I never know. I mean, I just wait and the first one I think went to the last night. Second one I think went to the last night. I think up until last time, I think everything went to the last night. And that's fine. I mean, it got funded, so I don't.
That's the main goal.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's a little bit right now. It'd be nice to fund it earlier, only because my printer's ready to go. Like, I talked to her the other day. She's like, "When are we doing this?" I'm like, "You gotta wait till this date." And she wants numbers and everything, and I'm like, "I can't give you numbers yet. I don't know how many I'm selling yet." So, to me, and to James' point, I mean, it is a little bit of a science. You want to provide enough inventory for future, but I'll be honest, right now, my volume 2, as you know, or you may not know, I had to do a reprint of volume 1. And, I typically know I usually gain about 20 new pledges, I guess I would say. I mean, I'm assuming they're new because they buy all 4 books or all 5 books, how many books they're out. So they kind of do like a new, they buy the whole complete volume. And so, this time around, I'm not seeing as much of that, but who knows over the next week what can happen. But, I keep my fingers crossed in the sense of I want to get it out there. I mean, by all means. And I'll just kind of wait along. But yeah, the sooner it comes, what I plan on doing, I'll put on a credit card and I'll wait for my Kickstarter money, but I need to get it in. So, the moment I get funded, is the moment I'm going to go forward. So, but yeah.
Now on Kickstarters, I'm not, I don't do Kickstarters, but if you get close to let's say you're $100 off for the Kickstarter ends,
yep.
Are you able to just go ahead and purchase it yourself and fund it? You can't go on your own and do it? Okay.
No. So either all funded or not. That's the name of the game. And then usually it takes a couple weeks to get the money from them. They take their share, of course. And then, you wait around. But, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, you can't fund yourself, but I could probably call James and say, "Hey, $100 short. Come on, man. Go put it in."
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm waiting in the wings. If Dan's short or Carson or anybody, don't let me. All jokes aside, with me going to JoeCon, I'm watching it. But then I was also going to ask Dan. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I have noticed yours do come down to the last day or two, but when it's all said and done, you're not just kissing your deadline. It's blown over. Everybody wants your books. They just want to wait for the last minute for whatever reason,
Well, I think, it's just, it's hard to time it all. I've had them go against Carson's, at times. And again, it wasn't on purpose. It's convenience to whatever I'm doing. And, you have Marauders going right now as well. So I know there's a lot of money wrapped up there. So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to why people wait, and that's again, you have to ask the crowd or the fans. But I don't know. But again, it usually goes over a little bit, which is always nice. But
maybe it's because I didn't realize how it worked till after I did the first Kickstarter I ever did was, I believe, your book, Dan, last year was the first Kickstarter I ever backed, and I think and I thought this too, is that they took the money right then, where they wait till it's over with and funded, then they'll withdraw the money. And I think maybe that's what some people think. I mean, that's what I thought at first until I did it, and then I saw that it wasn't like that. And of course, like I said, anything G.I. Joe, 9 times out of 10, I usually fund it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, there's a grace period that you have to wait. And James probably speaks to this too. You have to wait. I think it's about 2 weeks typically, and then the funds show up. And usually, I'm okay with that because, it was a little bit tight last year. It's just a crazy time. I was traveling, and I was actually working on the cover when I was gone, and then the slip case or the sleeve, the case for all the books was kind of a bonus thing, and I tried to get that added on there as a stretch goal, and even though it didn't fund it, I just felt like it was the right thing to do to kind of put them all together. So I know some people thought I was done with this series. I've had that a couple times. People are like, "Oh, I thought you were done."
Yeah.
And maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to do. But I really wanted to wrap up Kirk's section. Say, okay, this is done. The history of G.I. Joe section is done, and so forth. And then let's move on to the process. And so, I went ahead and it is a little bit more challenging because I had to have custom boxes built for those sleeves. Because I tried to keep them. I got my sample. I put 4 books in it, and I used the box I normally ship in, and it didn't do too bad. I did a drop test, and then I did I put a 1 book in there because I figured a lot of people buying are going to be just buying the 1 book, and then get the case for them all. Well, when I dropped 50 pounds of books on them, it didn't survive. So I had to mail them flat, which meant I had to go find a box company, actually out of Ohio, to a custom box. It's just like an inch bigger than those other ones. And then it is a learning experience. You learn every time from this, on these extra things you do. And it is what it is. James.
Oh, I'm laughing with, man. No, I mean, absolutely. Because I did. Unfortunately, I missed you last year, so I had to buy volumes 3 and 4 online. And yeah, it came fine.
Yeah,
the slipcover's awesome. I had to have that.
I have the slipcover with my 1 book in it. I need to get the rest of them.
He's got 1.
And again, that was a bonus. Anybody who bought Volume 4 got that as a freebie. So I threw it in.
Now for JoeCon, you'll have any current stock you have, correct?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That's the thing. It all comes down to, because now I'm on the brink of running out of Volume 2. So to do another reprint, I had to figure that all out because it's cheaper to make more initially than it is later on, of course. So I'm waiting to see how this ends. I have that show here in Arizona. I had the show in California in early April. So if I don't have any Volume 2, most likely I'm going to have to go ahead and figure out a way to get another reprint of that and have it available for JoeCon. That's my assumption. But with me continuing on the series, I'm always kind of tossing around the idea, like, do I just not reprint it? And it is what it is. But then if someone new comes to the game, I kind of feel bad that, they can't buy 1 through 10, or let's just use 10, 1 through 10. They're getting 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 1, let's say I run out of Volume 3 and 4. I don't know. So, that's why I'm really trying this time to figure out how many do I really need for future and stuff like that. It's crapshoot. You don't know. I don't know.
Are all your volumes up right now? Like, are they all available currently on the Kickstarter?
Yeah. You can buy all 5 of them right now. So
okay,
nice. Dan, did you reprint Volume 1? Sorry, I mean.
Yeah, I had to reprint Volume 1.
Well, I was just going to ask, did you? Yeah, but you went ahead and funded that yourself, correct?
Yeah.
Because you could tell the trends and.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So when I did, for Volume 2, I of course didn't increase it because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm trying to be smarter now to, maybe increase the amount a little bit. And I'm not saying go crazy because I don't want to. Number one, I don't have room in my house. My wife, I'm sure, doesn't appreciate all the space it takes. Number 2. I don't want all this extra inventory for no reason. I mean, I want to get to the fans. If this is where I'm at, after this one will give me a good idea of like, okay, well, maybe I need to do 25 more, or maybe I need to do 50 more. But I don't think I'm gonna have to do like a ton more. But I don't know. And again, it's a risk I'm gonna have to take. And at some point, I just have to draw the line and say, sorry guys, they're out. So maybe secondary market. I don't know. I don't know what to do. So
I got a question here off the chat from Parking Fridge, do you guys see a lot of repeat business, many of the same backers, or do you have a growing base? So, I mean, that's a good question. How kind of you see, are you able to see who's actually backing you every time?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And yes, yeah. I mean, I even when because I handle every label and I look at them, and blah 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 XYZ. At a certain point, it's like, oh yeah, I recognize all the names, and it's great. It's great to see everybody coming back.
Yeah.
Do you ever think that when you've seen one on like volume one, and then you get up to 4 and you don't see it again, you kind of wonder, did they not like it, or wasn't their cup of tea, or do you ever think about that?
I don't personally see the names like to that degree. Like
Okay.
it's not until I see them ordering that, oh yeah, it's great to see Tom again, or it's great to see Mike again, and everybody. But if they were to not order, I wouldn't notice. And I'll be honest with you, I think I was just gonna say, I think my style and Dan can answer technically, but my interpretation of his style is you either if you like the first one, you're gonna like every other one.
I have my naughty list for those people, so they sit there and take cards.
Oh, all right.
No, I'm joking.
That's why my book took so long.
Dan, what you were saying about new people coming in, I wanted to talk about that just a little bit. So, I stepped into Carson's world last year at JoeCon. So I discovered Carson, and I'm up to date on him. It's probably James. I think I discovered your stuff before that, maybe a year before that. So I'm up to date on all of James's stuff. I'm somebody, I didn't know a whole lot about your stuff, Dan, but now that I know that all the volumes are up, someone like me, I'll dip into that. Because for me, I'm more of a completist when it comes to those types of things. I mean, look at the hobby. So it's that kind of thing. So I would want, if you're looking to know, like, are people interested in the back ones? I'm definitely interested in stuff like that. And stuff like, whether it's this Joe show or some of the other shows that are popping up and podcasts and stuff like that, those things are grabbing some new people. Is it like, are they in droves? Is there a film in the theater? No, but you will pick up people like that. I've had so many just conversations with people that are just kind of stepping into the Joe world like me, just through my Twitter. I only do Twitter. I don't do Facebook or any of this stuff. But there are people like us out there. So when you do reprint it or put all the volumes up with your Kickstarters, that's super useful for us.
And I have a website afterwards usually, and I mean I usually acquire, like I said, it's usually about 20 new people, like new people meaning those. And maybe that's inaccurate to say, because I look at whoever bought the whole set of volumes, right, whatever's available each time. I mean, there may be new people just buying one book. I mean, maybe they're like, well, let me give number 3 a try, and I'll get 1, 2, and 4 later. I don't know. I mean, I guess I do know and I don't know. I don't look, to James' point, I don't look that closely. But I can tell you this, international buyers, I learned this last time. So I noticed a couple of international buyers didn't buy number 3, but when number 4 came out, they did. And they said, hey, man, to save on shipping, I got the 2 volumes together. I said, okay, that totally makes sense then. So sometimes these guys, the international fan base will sort of wait. Sometimes, not always, but at times they'll wait to kind of save a little bit on shipping. So.
Dan, have you experienced the international side? I mean, international guys kind of ordering in bulk because they'll get together in their respected country and be like, hey, man, my group's meeting in August. Can you send us 10, 20, 30 copies? Okay.
I think there's one person that does that who will buy kind of for like their area, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, you get like hit or miss as far as where they actually order from. I have like one fan from China, one from not one from Australia, but a few from there. It's just New Zealand. It's just spread out a little bit. And what's cool is, I mean, I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to see that someone in a different country appreciates Joe.
Oh, absolutely. Well, then, and then what other one? Sorry, because only because Dan and I, it's kind of interesting to bounce since we have the platform to bounce ideas and answer your question. Have you noticed an increase in people purchasing to exactly what Rick said? Got to collect them all. That now that you have a few volumes out, I mean, because that's what I think the problem is with me, or I shouldn't say the problem, but the scenario is with me, Mike. And I think, yeah, you probably saw, I forget what group it was in, but one gentleman was like, I just bought the originals 2 and 3.
Yep.
And I volume 1 sold out within a year. And it, in a year's worth of time, gave me passing interest to get me to the point of doing a Kickstarter. Now that I have volumes 2 and 3 out, I mean, 3's almost sold out in 7 months, and volume 2 is sold out. Volume 3's down to dwindling. It's not even technically sold out. But I guarantee it will be sold out before JoeCon. So that's why I did the revision. You know.
And I was actually going to buy 3 and then get that one Fred's been telling about for about 6 months now. And then as a matter of fact, it was after I messaged you, Kavanaugh, about that. And then like a day or two later, your Kickstarter went up. And I was like, well, heck, this is the best way. I'll do the Kickstarter. That'd be a lot easier. Now, both of y'all have done different, I've been looking through these as we've been talking, different pledges. And like Rick, there's one in here perfect for you, dude. You get all 5 of them for $220. So you need to hop on over and pledge right now for $220. So, but the one I'm looking for, it says, I even asked you, Kavanaugh, about this, was that I was wanting to add like more one pledges, but it won't let me do that. I mean, is that a common practice? You can only pick one of these pledges totally out of it?
It's a nuance of Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And unless Dan wants to, Dan, just cut me off at any point if you know better, but it's a nuance of Kickstarter to where you pledge the tier level that makes the most sense, and then you take the math of any additional item that you want to add, and you just simply over add. So, okay, for a ridiculous scenario, you can pledge $1 million for the why not both combo. So you'll get volumes 2 and volume 3. Right. You can pledge $1 million for that. It'll give you the option to do more than what I'm only asking. The minimum for you to get those is, I think, $50.
I see it. Okay, so I hate to cut you off. Let me ask this real quick because I'm in here right now, and it says manage your reward. And if I click on your pledge amount, if I wanted to make it more than $50, let's say I wanted to add $12 for that sexy picture of you, I can do that and make it $62, and I'll get that sexy picture of you.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. and now to fully clarify, go ahead.
He's absolutely correct. I mean, it's what you pledge. So, I mean, because I get that with the prints. A lot of people were like, well, can I buy more than 4 prints? 4 prints is the max I have on there because I figure I never know. So sometimes people will, I usually just keep it standard. I think it's 4 prints. You're buying the book, and I think the print comes out to like $12 a pop for each additional, for each print. So if someone wants 5, 6, 7, 8 prints, and what I usually do is I usually only offer prints from the current volume and the most recent volume, so volume 4 and 5. This time it did a little bit different. I talked to my other printer. I have 2 different printers actually, and my other printer, I asked them about, can anybody print from any of the volumes? And they said yeah. So now I've kind of opened up it even more. So if you let's say you just came in now for the first time and you're like, well, man, volume 2 has Cobra Commander, or the Baroness is in this volume, or Storm Shadow is in this volume, but man, I can't get it. It wasn't in volume 4 or 5. I hate to have someone miss out on a character that they love. So I've opened it up now across the board. So that's something different this time around as well, which I probably should tell people. But
nice.
But yeah, to James's point, I mean, I usually have people email me or message me like, hey, I want to get more poster prints. or if I want to buy an extra book to get 3, I'd like to have one I want to keep sealed or whatever the case is. Usually I get messages, and then because you can always pledge over, like James has said, you could pledge $1 million. What it comes down to is when your survey comes, what do you put on it? Maybe you're just a really nice person, and you just want your book, and the rest of the money, I guess, just goes to the Kickstarter. But typically, people want something, and honestly, I feel more comfortable because I've had some people like, oh, don't worry. I'm like, no. I'm like, I want to fulfill it. I want to, I want to make sure you get product for what you paid for, and that's me personally. So
I have a question for the two authors here. We were talking about reprints earlier, and like Dan had said, well, there may come a point when certain volumes just go out of print.
Yeah.
And and the same with James is doing a reprint to build stock up. At that point, I noticed a lot of what I consider smaller publishers, and some of that's from the industry that I work in, have started to do digital versions as well. They run out of their primary run, their secondary print run. After that, the older volumes are available digital only. Have either of you ever considered that route? That maybe down the road, you might be able to get digital copies of some of these.
To avoid Fred's question, I mean, and I'm just kidding, but a quick point to really wrap up Mike's talking about adding on more. You'll want to specify in the comments. And Dan can critique his approach, but you'll either want to message me or specify in the notes of the survey. They call it a survey, but it's where you give your address. You'll want to say that I'm buying, in my instance, I'm buying the 1-2 punch. I want both books. But then the additional money is for the autograph photo and the trip with $1,000 trip for me to do where we go party and and everything in between. You want to clarify that's what you want. But then to answer Fred's question and shoot again, I go ahead.
I'm getting my charger. I've had a couple of people, who have said, "Oh, I pledged this," and I'm like, "Well, what do you want?" "Oh, I don't want anything." And usually I'll either throw, if they won't give me an answer, I usually just throw some prints in, and at one point I have bookmarks and stuff. Just again, I want to fulfill their order. I don't want it just feels weird to me if someone just throws money, I guess.
Well, it's a nuance on Kickstarter on the back end that if you throw me $62, I might not think, and you put it under the 2 books, I might not think of math to do the picture. So you just want to dot I's and cross T's and make it clear. Okay. And then if something happens beyond that, I think Dan's the same way. I'll ship it to you, and we'll make it right. I haven't been 100% perfect with my shipping, but I've 100% made everybody happy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
Fred, I didn't.
Yeah.
What was your question?
Oh, I was just asking about when things go out of print eventually, and there's, instead of doing yet a third run, would you ever consider digital versions?
Yes, I'm not opposed to digital, short of really researching any sort of copying issues, because I've found my RHC Guides accessory section available for free on torrent, and I've found a couple of Ron Connor's books on torrent. And and on Facebook, some guy just banged out a 50 image post. He's like, "Here you go." And I told Ron, I said, "Hey man, your book was on Facebook. I reported it saying it was mine because I didn't have a choice."
Yeah.
And you had to, like, "Is this book yours?" And there was no option. Well, I think Ron would be all right with me, flagging his book to get it canceled. But yeah,
sorry, James. I didn't mean to put your book out there like that.
Oh, I knew it was you. That's it. Thunderdome's on Saturday. Be there.
There we go. I'll see you at our booth. Booth will be there.
Yeah, at our booth. But yeah, I mean, the only reason why I haven't done digital is because I crank out. I've always gone in with a number ahead of time, so I don't kickstart my first runs. I mean, I'm single. I don't have any kids and low bills. You know what I mean? When you got that, you know, you have a little more flexibility. So I'll do that. But and if a book is active, like my first book is still active to this day, based on the quantities that I chose to print, I'm not gonna put anything out on digital until the reprint option is too low. Then that'll be the format you'll get it at.
For me, I mean, I've been asked several times, you know, by people like, why aren't these online or digital? And I mean, I've always been a firm believer that these books, you know, out of respect for the creators and the people that worked on this stuff, for some reason, I just have this feeling like it deserves to be in print. And you know, it doesn't mean I won't eventually put it digitally, and maybe that's another option. Like when I do run out, maybe that is the option. I go digital with it. But right now, I just think they deserve to be in print. I don't mean like my book, but the artwork that these guys worked on, and to see them, you know, firsthand.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, some of the quality on the art is great. Some of it, you know, you got to realize a lot of this art comes from Xerox copy in the 80s, which their machines weren't that great. So, you know, I go in and I do my best as far as cleaning them up. I mean, a lot of this stuff has been folded over, so I have to go in and Photoshop and, you know, clean them up as best as possible to present them well and to represent these guys, the designers, the creators. I want to represent them to where they're proud of it. I mean, now that's what it's about, is recognizing that team, that brand team that worked on that, on the show from 82 to 94. Is a special time, a special team of people that did it. And I try to recognize everybody. I mean, whether you did one character or whether you did 300, you know, I try to make that you are recognized in some way, shape, form in my series. And it's part of the reason why it's broken down the way it is. So.
And if I was in Dan's shoes, I would agree with that exact same premise with his work for those very reasons. Yeah, I mean, mine's not to downplay it, but it is an amalgamation of product that's out there. You know, some's high end, some you can get for $3. Mine is just a display of information. Dan's is a wealth of pre-production artwork you're not going to see anyplace else.
And I think it's just, you know, I mean, I think it goes back to you know, we move so fast in society nowadays and digitally, and everything's digital, blah blah. You know, sometimes it's just nice to have a book in your hand. I feel, you know, I still order books offline. I don't, you know, my wife does a lot of reading digitally, but you know, I know I can go download a book, but I still buy it typically, and that way I can hold it in my hand and thumb through it, like the He-Man book that came out. Both He-Man books, you know, that have come out. The Transformer books by Sorensen, you know, I like thumbing through it myself. So,
I got one more quick question for Kavanaugh before we go to a different subject. I had read somewhere, I can't remember where I saw it. You talked about, I think are you getting ready to do another book, volume 4? It's going to be over the club stuff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I actually had to expand my original volume premise by at least one volume. Mine, I can dial mine in a little bit. Dan's could go on forever. Dan can tell you better than that, but we already know. You know what I mean? Dan's could go on for 50 volumes. You know, I mean, there's so much stuff we don't know that's out there. Mine is, we all know how many figures were produced between 2007 and 2018. Only because I've been constantly doing the math with my original volume 4 being all club and San Diego Comic-Con, well, exclusives in general, but they've just so happened to come out in San Diego. Mine would be like an 100 page book on that. So volumes 4, which hopefully, knock on wood as I bash my skull in, will be out for JoeCon. And volume 5 will be out 6 months roughly after the club has given us every figure that they're going to give us. Because I obviously can't make a book without all the figures.
So you're talking about the end of FSS 8?
Yes, FSS 8. I'm fairly confident we'll reach into 2019.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, and I'm not to get off topic, but I'm kind of in speculative mode, and laying it all out. I think there's a few things that beyond the FSS and the sets that we'll get before the end of the year. Gotcha. If I was them, I would want to make the most of the license before it's done and get that money in.
I think their agreement is they can't take new orders for product after the end of 2018, but they can certainly ship product.
Mm-hmm. Now they can also, if you're on the payment arrangements, they can still garnish your payment arrangements. They did that for Transformers right at the end, as it lapped over the following year. They still when did we get those? Like almost April of the following year.
Yeah.
And they were still taking payments out on my end. So that will still happen. But with that being said, I'm actually looking forward to that volume 4 when you get that one ready to go. But we're going to switch gears. I do appreciate both y'all coming on. You're more welcome to stay on throughout the entirety of the show. Both of y'all are roughly at a week on your Kickstarters. I have funded. I'm pretty sure Fred has funded.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
I did my usual on both.
And Rick's going to do the 220 when we get off the show tonight.
I'm definitely going to go look it up and see what's
220.
what.
Dude, Rick's doing it right now.
Dude, 220. Anyways, you got our support. And Kavanaugh, I've been pushing you on Facebook, and Dan, I get out there as much as I can, and I hope both y'all, for my sake, can get it funded because I really want to enjoy these books like I have the other ones.
So, you guys have been great. I mean, I'm interrupting on purpose because I want to say thank you as soon as possible. You guys have been awesome.
We thank you. I mean, we appreciate you, taking the time, the effort, the patience, and probably the headaches and all the Tylenol you take in order to do this.
Yeah, you guys are doing all the work. We're just the people that throw some money at it and then go, "Ooh, new book, pretty pick."
Hey,
you guys are the boots on the ground and the men in the trenches. And real quick before we transition, how about each of you give us your 15-second, 30-second elevator spiel on why people should back each of your projects one more time. So start with James and then slide over to Dan.
Okay, well, it's the definitive. These, for all intents and purposes, should be the definitive volumes of volumes 2 and volumes 3 to coincide with volumes 1.1. Looking at the trends, I really don't see myself publishing again, and more importantly, I'd hate to, like people said earlier, I would hate to not be able to provide somebody a book down the line. So if you had any passing interest and you're kind of on the fence, I strongly encourage you and greatly appreciate you contributing to the Kickstarter. We get it funded and maybe take some solace, if not anything that I'm providing, solace out of the fact that the books will be available for those that really engage the hobby and get involved. I guarantee I have seen the karma of GI community firsthand. Not to get too cosmic, but it will come back to help you out. Having just one more, you'll be surprised how one more fan in your life might find your dream, your holy grail at a reasonable price. It gets weird like that.
And Dan, what's your short final spiel?
Thanks, James. Now, first of all, I just want to say thanks to you guys as well. I didn't say that earlier, but really, I appreciate everybody's support on this, and you guys having myself on it, and with someone like James, as well as a guest host or a guest. It's always fun. James is a good guy, so like I said, I feel bad that we're running at the same time, but I think his project, is a good project, and I think people will continue to support his. Because of what it is too. I mean, the modern era, we need to have that recorded and for long term. So, but no, thank you first of all. Regarding the book, I mean, if you're a fan of Joe and from 82 to 94, and like I said earlier, kind of with the whole, if you're a fan of artwork, and a lot of these guys, you know, you got a lot of designers in these books, and then there's, like I said, there's the stories behind the scenes, you know, from engineers or sculptors. I mean, there's one about Airborne's helmet in this one. There's just all these little interesting facts that that sometimes they're not in memos, but they are from the sources themselves. And so if you want to learn about G.I. Joe from those who worked on the brand, and you know, my book does try to provide the best format and avenue as far as sharing that information. And like I said, if you're a fan of artwork and seeing these preliminaries, and I think I haven't seen too much of this, but for customizers, you know, when I look at some of these color studies or even some of these different preliminary sketches, because a lot of times they kit bash, you know, different things. So they may take an arm from this guy, or, you know, chest from this guy, whatever. It'd be fun to see some more of that. I mean, I would love to see, you know, more customs from either the color studies or just, you know, kit bashing some of these figures together. Like, oh, that looks like so-and-so. And maybe just fun to see something. Like, I can't wait to show you guys Destro. Destro's preliminaries are just...
I can imagine.
They're just super cool. And I mean, there's some head sculpts I'm like, man, that would have been really cool as a head. So Destro is one of those figures I'm looking forward to featuring here shortly. So because I have some nice preliminary stuff on him. But yeah, if you like the history of Joe, and like I said, you appreciate good artwork by good designers and people who really were passionate about what they did, you know, that's what my book's about. And it's a big thank you to those guys. And that's truly what it is. So
cool.
If I can give Dan 10 more seconds, I would even tell the guys that are into the newer stuff that if you want a more comprehensive understanding as to why they made the decisions they made on the newer stuff, I guarantee you a lot more of it draws from the older stuff, which is Dan.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both so far for just coming on and taking time to talk about your projects and to share your passion with everyone here. So
thank you.
And thank you for having us.
And I'm sure Mike's got the next item on the agenda now. So
yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I want to call it what grinds my gears with Fred or Fred's rant. It's not really a rant, but since Fred did miss the last episode of our reveals of JoeCon figures, we talked about this off air, but just give people your thoughts on the Smasher figure.
Real quick, I was hoping this was going to be a segment called "What Grinds My Gears About Fred."
Oh,
then we have a hot topic.
Oh. So,
I
kids,
kid.
Support Dan's Kickstarter and not James'. Just saying.
No,
you know, I'm just kidding, buddy.
I know.
All right, so I'll keep it short, guys. Smasher, I think, and I wrote this on JBL. I think Smasher was a really good example of the club basically throwing a curveball at fans. And, you know, they used the name for the International Sarge. And so a lot of people jumped to a conclusion. The club never once promised that this was going to be Slaughter. They said it was another drill instructor. And I'm probably in the vast minority, but I'm totally digging Smasher. He's new. I'm a sucker for new characters. I like the funky tie-in to Mr. C. Mohawk is completely different now because it wouldn't make sense for him to have a big Cobra Mohawk. You know, could the build be a little more original? Probably, but that's always the case. You know, we're always going to have questions like that. But all in all, I don't have an issue. It's probably shocking to people, but yeah, I'm kind of digging him so far. It's funny that's mostly the heavy duty body too, because that hasn't had a ton of reuse. So it's not like, okay, well, look, you know, here's our retaliation roadblock body again. So yeah.
You know, I'm looking at the picture in the club magazine. You know who I've been meaning to say this for a while. He reminds me, do you remember the movie Police Academy 2? And it wasn't the old guy who was the kind of like the guy who always yelled Mahoney and all that. But he reminds me of the officer because a little short, stocky, kind of bald headed, and wore that same kind of hat. So he reminds me of.
I think my only sad regret is that I really wish somehow the club could get the license to using a Mr. T likeness and totally lean into the Mr. C thing and give us freaking B.A. Baracus, because I'm an old school A-Team fan, and that would be awesome. But I would still kill for. I would still kill for really good non-gloob 1/18 A-Team figures of the classic guys. So, yeah. Surprisingly, not a rant.
I would not turn down some A-Team crossover.
Oh. I think an A-Team crossover would make more sense than the $6 million man what they're doing right now. Not that I minded. I just always saw $6 million man as more of an adventure team crossover.
Yes. Okay. That was my exact comment. Yeah. Good call.
Also, if you read the club magazine, they did preview the 12-inch Green Beret machine gun outpost 12-inch figure set. They showed us one in the magazine, and they'll show us the other one online. They say, but I'm waiting on that. Have you gotten your magazine yet, Fred, to see it?
Yes. I kind of actually feel bad for some of the 12-inch collectors right now because, I haven't gone to JoeCon every year, but I've been going long enough to remember when 3 3/4 guys were in the minority at JoeCon. And, it seems like this year, like I know it's the last year, but it's like, man, I kind of feel like the 1/6 scale previews are kind of like the redheaded stepchildren of the JoeCon now. In the fact that in the past, I enjoyed looking at the 12-inch previews just as much. 8 Legs of Danger and some of those were fun. And I don't know. I feel like like we get the gradual release hype, and the 12-inch guys are like, oh yeah, it's in the magazine. There'll be a single online preview. So. I mean, there aren't as many of them anymore, but still.
I mean, I like the black and white that they're doing. I think it's kind of a cool concept. I know some people like it, some people don't. I think it's kind of a cool concept. Because are those only offered through the club?
Yes. Yeah, those are. They're pretty much the exclusive on that now.
Do we know what they're going to run by chance?
No idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I don't know. I just think it's kind of cool. The nostalgia thing. I mean, recently picked up something. Somebody found they had received this porcelain Mr. Potato Head from a factory opening in Spain, I think it was.
Wow.
And this guy found it. He's like, hey, do you know anybody who's interested in this? And that's one thing I was going to mention earlier. But the two groups I run too, if you like pre-production things and want to own some of those things.
Hey guys, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, I'm going to be off for just a few minutes. There was a storm coming through, and it's hailing really bad out there.
Oh wow!
So
yikes!
Y'all keep the conversation going, and because we were trying to do something else. My wife was trying to do something outside, but like I said. There must be 1,000 hail balls out in my yard. So give me about 5 minutes. Y'all just keep the conversation going, okay?
All right. Be safe up there. Or down there. Over there. I'm trying to think where you're at in location to me. But, no, I was just saying there's a group called Pre-Pro in Facebook that you want to – I sell for a lot of former Hasbro guys and stuff like that. So if you ever want to have any pre-production items – a lot of times I have stuff listed in there. Then I also have the Projo's site, which is more production items that some of these guys have. But sorry, I had to throw that out there. But the Mr. Potato Head, I ended up picking up myself, and it's more. It's just like I'm not a potato head collector, of course, but it's just the nostalgia feeling of that's such a cool. That's Hasbro to me. Mr. Potato Head is Hasbro.
Yeah.
So I just thought it's kind of those cool things. And that's kind of why I'm thinking maybe picking up some of these black and white ones, because it's just like it's that vintage Joe. I used to be a 12-inch collector in the sense of classic collection and the Hall of Fame, in the 90s. And then, 3 3/4 inch just kind of took me by reign, and I had to kind of move away from that. But I have a hard time. I mean, I really haven't sold a lot of my 12-inch classic collection, and there's certain ones I will never sell, just because I love the artwork on those classic collection boxes.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, I went on a little rant there, but yeah.
Well, the black and white Joes, it's funny. So pointless story, but my grandparents were like Depression era people, and so they, you didn't throw something out. If you could repurpose it down the road, you held on to it. And when we were cleaning out my grandmother's house years ago, my dad held on to this. We have an old 1950s TV cabinet that Grandpa had taken the tube out, but it still has like the wood doors that close. It still has the mesh over the speaker. It just doesn't have the guts for the tube. And I was sitting there and I was looking at those black and white Joes, and I think I'm going to try to build a black and white diorama and set it inside the old TV, and that's where they're going to go.
Cool. That is really cool. That's a cool idea.
It's kind of a random thing.
Yeah, I love it.
So I know the one thing we had talked about discussing tonight was, and it kind of affects, more than just G.I. Joe, but it is the news that trickled out. I saw it via Bloomberg. People had seen it on CNN. We've known that Toys R Us has been having some hard times lately. And, there's the first round, the round of store closings are coming. They announced then that there was going to be a second round, but there was never a list sent out. And then Bloomberg dropped, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, the news that Toys R Us US might go into liquidation soon. And I'm just kind of curious from everybody, like, what are your thoughts on that? And because I've been having an ongoing discussion with a whole group of friends via text on it, and also just like what does that mean for a lot of the lesser, the smaller production run toy line that Toys R Us used to be the place to get. And now if Toys R Us fades, you're going to go to Amazon online, you're going to go to the e-tailers, and then you're going to be left with Target and Walmart.
I mean, for my kids' sake, I feel bad. Like I said, that they won't have it if it does that go away. I mean, it's fun taking them there and them seeing a whole store of toys and stuff like that. So, I mean, I remember Children's Palace and I remember the Hills department store. I think their motto wasn't it something about toys? What was their motto? Hills where the toys are, or something like that. But I mean, look at Kmart. I mean, I used to go to Kmart as a kid. We didn't have Walmart and Target where I grew up until like the 90s. So I was already grown up. So I'll be sad in the sense of, I mean, I take the kids there occasionally. I mean, we do. I'm not gonna lie, we do order stuff online, but big part of that is just Toys R Us carry what my son may want. If there's a certain truck he likes online, they may not have it. But for my daughter, most of what she likes can be found there. So for their sake, I'm more, whatever, sad for it, I guess, in that sense. So.
I think it's a shame. I mean, obviously, because we're clearly biased by being on this podcast alone. We're in the den of thieves. That going to the toy store was a huge deal, and I would save my money every week, and I would take the catalogs and strategize who I was going to buy in what order, and save my money and do the math and all that. And it was just a huge highlight of my life. I've been helping out with Chris Neal's toy department, which is secondhand collectible toy store, mind you. And obviously, we're all older and a lot of us have kids, so kids have to come with, can't leave them at home anymore. And it's really hit or miss. There's some kids that could spend days there just staring at everything. And there's kids that just can't wait to get out so they can go play their video games.
Yeah.
And honestly, if the kids are actively engaged with the toys, at least these kids, I think there's still a bias because their parents are actively engaged with toys, and the kid just likes. And at that point, the kid likes the active engagement with the parent, and that's the toy is the conduit. And that's always been my stance with the nuances of G.I. Joe and any other sort of brand is at a certain point, the more relatable that it is with the adult, if you're dealing with these legacy brands, the more the kid's going to want it because the kid likes the fact that dad's playing with them.
Yeah.
And dad plays with what he knows. Dad doesn't play with. I mean, okay, this one kid asked if we had any Friday Night at Freddy's, and I don't even know enough about it to poop on it. Sort of Friday Night at Freddy's. I don't even know if I'm calling the brand by its proper name. All I know is that's the first line that's been out there that says, "James, you're old because you don't know what this is."
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, the store can't have everything, and that's fine. But is my kid going to have? Is my kid going to want to play with Star Wars? If my kid wants to play with Star Wars, yeah, I'm going to be in there, man. Luke and whoever else is running around. But if he's with Friday Night at Freddy's, I want to play with my kid, but I'm not going to be motivated personally to play with Friday Night at Freddy's. But yeah, I mean, and to really answer the answer to that, then that just tells me that kids aren't really going to Toys R Us.
Yeah.
I mean, again with the toy department. I mean, Chris got in a huge collection of new Star Wars for a relatively cheap price, and he was selling them for $5, $6, and $8. And then that very same day, after we finished pricing them, I went to Toys R Us to check out a few things. And I saw them there for $15, sitting there in droves.
Yeah.
So people don't want it at those prices.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it.
If you think about, we've become a culture now where, and I've seen this, I've talked about this with coworkers that have kids too, and they're giving their kids electronics at an earlier and earlier age, the smartphone, because it's they always joke that in the 80s the way to babysit your kids was to turn on cable. You'd put them in front of the TV. Yeah. And now you're babysitting them by giving them a smartphone. And kids then are playing games and they're doing things and they're getting these in-app purchases. It's the concept of going to the toy store. It's not that instant gratification for them now. And I think that kids today are used to a faster turnaround between I want something and I get it. Whereas, the toy store doesn't provide that for them.
I can only talk about the kid experience. It's still new for me. So, my kid is 5. And I can talk about the time he was 3, I started taking him to Toys R Us and he could verbally tell me what he thought about it. And for him, it was a big deal. But again, he's been around toys, it's like a toy museum in my house. But he hadn't been to a convention. He hasn't done any of those things yet.
Yeah.
But he hadn't been in a place where there were so many toys. And his response was, whoa, this place is so big. It's all toys. And after that, from 3 to 5, he talked about it. Are we going to the big toy store? He didn't, doesn't really even know the name. He just knows it's the big toy store. So my wife and I were talking about it on the way back from, we went to see Marvel Live this morning. So we had a commute back and we were talking about it and we kept it quiet because I didn't want him to know the news that, trickled in this week. So I didn't even mention it. So from the kid point of view, it is about, how much time you give your kids cell phones and computers. And I've seen whether it's good parenting or bad parenting, I've seen people give kids tablets at age 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. It's not part of our parenting. But he will see me watch videos on YouTube and he'll watch some of the toy stuff with me here and there. But really, he's still into playing, and that's just how we've introduced, whether it's Potato Head or Disney toys or Star Wars or Hot Wheels. He has an open imaginative play. So from the kids' point of view, I think it's sad. You know, I'd like to think that we wouldn't have to go to a convention to rummage through toys, you know, in the next few years.
Yeah.
But from my point of view, it's I'm such a different collector now than I was 5 years ago, where I was just I was doing more toy hunting. Now my toy hunting involves more of the vintage stuff and trying to get some of those things that are still in great condition before they completely disappear. Because I'm at an age now where I can, especially the Transformer stuff, because I've been into that so many years. I can tell you like how hard it is to find stuff now versus 25 years ago, and I can see it, like physically see it, whether it's at conventions or online. Some of that stuff is really pretenders. It's getting really hard to find in good shape. So toys for me and Toys R Us, I only go to Toys R Us maybe once a month. It's not, I know I have friends that go 2 or 3 times a week looking for stuff. That's not me. So I guess the impact for me as an adult collector is not as big as it is for how I feel about the kid stuff.
Well, and go ahead.
Joe's still being produced, and especially if it's a Toys R Us exclusive, I think we probably set, you know. But you know, with what it is, I mean, like I said, I mean, my son and daughter just really started getting playing for some odd reason. Loves you like little doll things. My son likes Legos. He loves his Legos. I'm introducing him to some Joe stuff. Not giving him some of the figures. Lose parts right away, and I don't care. You know, I give him the figures, look him all. Number one, I don't know if I even have them all or him. Then, but I think if Joe Brown is more impacted in it, especially Toys R Us. I think
I think we're losing him.
Yeah.
Are y'all on the Toys R Us topic?
We're on the
Yeah.
should Mike shave his beard like Mr. C topic.
No, I am
Yes.
growing this beard out because I have a surprise for y'all come JoeCon.
Nice.
we were wondering if you tried to get some of the hail outside.
I think post JoeCon you should go as Mr. Tennell yourself, Mr. T, or maybe a Mr. M in there. Shave it like that.
That hail, I'll actually post the pictures on Facebook. My whole front yard, backyard, covered in hail, and I had to run outside because there's like a trench in front of my house and a pipe that goes underneath my sidewalk. At the very end of it gets clogged up, and I go out there and unclog it so the water would go, or it'll back up to the back. It'll back up to the garage in this other room here. It doesn't flood. It leaks water in it, but it's not a room that we use on it because it's kind of like it's really the cat's room is what it is. But I mean, it's actually used to be a garage. It's a strange building house. So, but that whole was, I mean, hail. I mean, it was coming down big time. I mean, bad. But anyways.
Well, kind of sound like it. Well, and at this point, since it's there, unfortunately, can I leave you guys to your piece? I do need to get going.
Oh, yeah, do what you got to do, man.
Cool. But, yeah, I just want to say thanks, everybody, for having me on. And good to be on there with you, Dan.
You too, my friend.
I appreciate it. You guys take
it
care.
easy, James.
Yeah, thanks so much for your support. I really can't thank you enough. And hopefully Dan and I get funded. And hopefully you guys don't slow down. I love being on here. I really appreciate you guys inviting me.
No problem. Appreciate you coming on.
Anytime.
I appreciate it. Hey, thanks. Take care.
Bye.
So where are we at? I'm sorry, we're on Toys R Us.
Well, we were just talking a little bit about Toys R Us, and so the other thing that I'd like to, and I think Dan was talking about this, he was starting to cut out, is that, you know, Toys R Us was the last retailer to take a chance on GI Joe.
Yep.
You know, it became an exclusive line for a few years, and again, you know, with GI Joe being what it is right now, and Hasbro saying that, you know, okay, it's going to come back at some point, but it might be different. You know, how does with Toys? Let's say Toys R Us is removed from the equation, then how do you think the brand would have to change with pretty much Walmart and Target being the big brick and mortar guns left?
They will. I mean, we know for a fact that we're not getting anything till the new movie. So movie stuff, you know, it's going to go to brick and mortar. It's going to go to Walmart, Target. It'll be part of their set for so long, and then what doesn't sell will be clearanced out. But if they want to do anything, they're going to have to probably reach out to like someone like a Big Bad Toy Store, honestly. Would have to be like a retailer carrier if Toys R Us goes under, which is what it looked like it's going to happen.
Well, and then to play devil's advocate, does that then eliminate the casual purchases by parents? Because when you're at Toys R Us, you know, kids can walk in there and walk around, and you know, they can make an impulse purchase. You know, when you're in retail, you still have greater reach than online. Does that really kind of relegate GI Joe to being a purely collector's line if it's going to Big Bad? Because Big Bad, let's face it, that's a collector's store.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it could go that way. I mean, they could totally come out of left field with something totally different, a whole new line, a whole new series. Like we were talking earlier before we went live, that, you know, you felt like that a Real American Hero is done. It's over with. We're not going to probably maybe ever see anything again.
I just don't think the story I was telling Mike is that I was at Target the other night, and we had gone to Toys R Us. We went over to Target afterwards, and there was a little 4-year-old kid, about 4 years old, was with his dad in the toy aisle. And his dad, you know, it was this kid was having a good night because dad was going to buy him something, whatever he wanted. And so his dad was pulling stuff off the racks. It was mostly Marvel stuff, and he was showing it to this kid. And he's like, "Well, how about the Hulk? How about Spider-Man?" And his kid was like, "Yeah, that's awesome." And then he would stop and he'd go, "No, Dad, that has a gun thing in there." And I'm like, "A gun thing?" And so I listened to their conversation from an aisle over, not creepy. And he was like, "No, that's a gun thing." And he would put it down. He wouldn't like touch it. And so I went back afterwards and looked, and what the kid was rejecting was any figure that had a weapon as an accessory. You know, and let's face it, we're in kind of a climate right now where, not trying to get super political, but just culturally, we're in an era where there's maybe a little military fatigue, and maybe there's definitely parents are more cautious about kids, and some parents are about kids and guns. And I mean, could the next, you know, for GI Joe to come back at retailers like Walmart, especially, who's carrying the core heavily, I mean, is it going to have to differentiate itself? Is Joe going to almost have to go more an adventure team route to, you know, connect with parents who are, you know, not wanting their kids to play with weapons, and also to survive in, you know, in the upcoming retail climate? I don't know.
All right, kids in school now. In school, you can get in trouble for just making that, you know, thumb and pointer finger gun. You can, like, at an early age now in school, you can be reprimanded.
Wow.
For doing those things. I know some of the stuff, like I said, is new to me because my kid's 5, and he just turned 5 in December. So he's in pre-K right now, but he'll be in kindergarten soon. And I'm hearing stories from other parents that have kids slightly older than me, and just keeping my ears open to all the things, you know. It's a different climate for sure.
Like son today, we were just about kids at school, and he's like, "Well, I don't really want to." They're hating each other, and I'm like, "So what? It's ninjas, man." I'm like, "Awesome." When I was a kid, we played ninja all the time. You know, I used to play Army all the time. I go out and, you know, growing up in Ohio, I mean, growing the fields and across the street, camo, and I mean,
yeah,
But the other day, he wanted to dress in camo all together, like every camo hat, camo. And my wife's like, why is he doing that? I'm like, what are you doing? Something to dress in camo? Like, just that's what he wanted to do today. I mean, he's a kid. He wanted to wear orange rain boots. Okay, well, here you go. I don't care. You know, let kids be a kid.
Yeah.
Go back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, I encourage my son to use his imagination as much as he can, and I've explained to him what it is. And you know, I try to capture him cell phones. Times he'll be sitting by himself, and he'll have his little story. He'll be doing sirens and whatever, and I kind of sneak the phone around, videotape him. You know, I want to capture these moments now, and people to do that. And, you know, as we get older, unfortunately, life takes us, and we kind of lose a little bit of
Yeah.
that.
Keep losing Dan.
Second.
Yeah.
Getting late, and I got a wife texting me. But yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, and these additional topics as well. I mean, it's always interesting to kind of hear people's opinions, see that where we're at in the same page or not. I think we are in the subject matter as far as so. But no, thank you guys again, and I appreciate you, Carter and James. Like I said, there's nobody else I'd rather be on with. He's a great guy, and I really hope his book funds as well. So,
well, thank you for coming on, Dan. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, we'll talk to you later, Dan.
Hey, have a good night. Nice meeting you.
Later.
Later, man. Well, okay, since it's down to three of us, do we talk FSS?
Oh yeah, spoiler. Do you have your figures with you?
I'm at work, so
My
sadly no. I could try to pull some images down and do a screen share.
I think Rick's looking. Rick got his. You got yours, Rick?
Yeah, but I haven't opened them. I just have them sitting here in the package.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Woo!
Yeah, so people who don't know, it was Worm and was it Diana or Verona?
Verona.
Yeah, that one there. Hey, tell you what, the artwork on that, boy, that is one sexy bitch.
That is my Verona.
Yeah, those are some good figures right there. Those are, in my opinion, I thought those were the two strongest ones out of the set. And
really?
Verona was on the top of my list. The Worm was actually on top of it. I just thought it was a pretty cool looking figure. For me, those were the top two, and surprisingly, they came in together, which means that Ghost Rider and Windmill will be last. Surprisingly.
So it's our high fly. It's weird because, a lot of times they'll save like one of the ones that everybody's waiting on. They'll make you wait for that one. Look at Raptor in the last one.
Yep.
And I can't imagine anybody out there going, oh man, this box doesn't have Windmill. Damn it. And then the next one, oh, there's no Windmill.
There's someone out there who's pissed off he ain't got his Windmill yet.
Yes, and I pity that sad. No, I'm kidding. Every character is somebody's favorite Joe.
Oh yeah.
Even if Windmill has a ceiling fan for a backpack, but I don't know. Rick, what do you think of these two new arrivals?
I haven't opened them yet. Like usually, it takes me just a few days to get them open and then get them on my shelf.
Yeah.
I just put up Sub-Zero like maybe 4 days ago, so I'll probably be knocking into these like tomorrow. But they look really good. I think Verona of the two of them looks the best.
Yeah.
And I love the October Guards. I think I have most of the modern October Guards stuff. But yeah, she looks really cool.
The only complaint I've heard on her was the knife on her chest area being the wrong knife to go in there. I think they were saying it was a Snake Eyes knife, maybe is what it was. But the one that goes on her chest is kind of, it comes in pretty much kind of bent. some people were complaining that they had stress marks on it already.
Yeah.
I mean, the backpack, you know, the gun. I mean, everything on mine is just great. I mean, it's a great. I mean, the knife to me is an afterthought because she has two of them actually. One on her chest, I think one on her side or leg. I can't remember.
She's really close to the comic artwork. I mean,
Oh,
she's
yeah.
missing the Garrison hat.
Yep.
And that she didn't have the knife in the comic art, at least not in the, because I posted on JBL's Facebook today the shot where they debuted her costume, you know,
and I saw that.
And it was kind of awesome because that issue, you know, they kind of showed you the new class, and granted, most of them you didn't see again in that volume. They were, you know, that was kind of the end of it, but now she looks good. And it, you know, this is one of those low hanging fruit figures for the club that they spent the money to tool her head, you know, a couple of years ago. I don't fault them for repurposing it. You know, Dana came back in a completely different look after, you know, she was the last surviving non-disgraced member, I think, of the original October Guard. And she went to the Joe team, and it was kind of awesome. And, you know, that was part of Brandon Jerwa's run. And I think this is what I want from the FSS is I want these. I don't need to necessarily have a vintage recreation of every single character, but I kind of like when they dig in and like they brought a Steel Raven, you know, who's an extreme character. I would have liked to have seen a little Sergeant Savage love, you know, just one or two. And well, now with the Marauder World War II Kickstarter, you pretty much you can build a lot of them. But I think it'd be kind of cool if even an FSS 8, like, you know what, throw us a Sergeant Savage or throw us one of the reactive armor figures from the Rise of Cobra movie repainted like they looked in Sigma 6, because that would be badass. But
yeah.
No, so who do you guys think is 13?
That's exactly what I was wondering. I have no idea. I was sitting here like, what's the 13th figure?
Well, me and Fred talked earlier, and the hint, just a reminder, 13th figure clues were this figure features a new head sculpt, previously missing in action from a sub team, and as usual, highly requested G.I. Joe team member, according to the club.
I love you added that disclaimer.
Well, I mean, it's always every figure they say is highly requested.
According to certain people at the club, this is the one you all wanted.
Just like everyone wanted Windmill. We all wanted Windmill.
Oh! I used to stay awake nights waiting for Windmill.
Yep. I think, and a lot of people on the HIS we've been talking, and on Cobra Island, is that we really think it's probably going to, we think, and I hope, I pray to God, it is actually Tiger Force Roadblock.
Of course you do.
I remember you saying that. Or yeah, I remember hearing you say that.
Of course you do.
We get that, then we get Jinx. It's done. We're complete.
I don't have a payload yet. I'm not complete. I'm not
payload
complete.
Coming 8.
And technically, Mike, you go back to your, including payload, you have Tiger Force Beachhead, Tiger Force Mutt. The club did those, and that Beachhead might look like the Great Pumpkin, but he was cool. And technically, where's your oh shoot? Wasn't there a Tiger Force version of Psych Out in Europe? Didn't he have white hair? No. I know Outback did, but wasn't there a Tiger Force Psych Out as well? I don't know. I always ignore Tiger Force.
Of the three of us, you would know, I think. I feel like.
Oh,
crap.
Fred goes deep.
Oh, crap.
Deep.
You know what though? I think if Mike is right on this, and if it is Tiger Force Roadblock, what I'm really hoping is, so okay, do you guys remember the canceled Amazon 3-pack Ultimate Roadblock from a number of years ago?
Yes.
He had 3 heads. He had the Rock. He had the Roadblock version 2 vest, which was a new piece.
Yeah.
And then he had the Renegade's head, which we've seen. But we never saw that comic accurate Roadblock head, the 3rd head. Now, it wouldn't be a 1-to-1 match to the original vintage, but man, I would be okay if they gave us a Tiger Force Roadblock, but gave us that head. Because then that would make that 13th figure like it'd be something. They don't have to tool it. In theory, it might have already been tooled, and it would give you something that's kind of unique. I don't know.
Possible.
I'm waiting for Mike. I'm waiting to hear the mic.
I'm researching right now. I'm researching.
I still want my payload. I just can't say that, especially because we got hardtop. And he's sitting up there. He's lonely. He needs his buddy.
He's lonely.
He needs his buddy.
Oh, I'm going to get in trouble, but it reminds me of that scene. You guys have all seen Team America.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kim Jong. I'm Ronry. So Ronry. I'm just picturing like Hardtop's just up there, just singing. Or he's payload singing. Man, he needs his buddy. So okay, so we know the club's going to do one more FSS. It's pretty much 90 like Ivory Soap. It's 99.44% certain. Rick, who besides payload, give me two that you're like, man, if this is it, if this is the end of the line, these are the two I have to have.
I don't know. I need to think about it, Fred. I haven't really thought about it. Trying to think of like right now I'm in vintage mode, so I am getting a few of the FS stuff from Mike, but I've only been playing with the sub stuff, so I'm trying to think vintage wise. What do I love that I haven't gotten
in an updated form? Yeah, because we've gotten a lot.
Mine would have to be that one bat. No, it wasn't the bat. It was everyone thought we were going to get it last year in the box set.
Damn it! I'm blanking on his name right now. He was the Bat Commander.
Yeah,
the cyborg. He was in the Deke episode. Not Overlord. Shoot.
Overkill. That's who I think we'll get in FS8. I think we'll get that.
Ooh.
Have we gotten Captain Gridiron yet?
No.
I feel like
I have seen some really good customs of him using mostly existing parts.
I've seen some of those too. Yeah, he's probably on my list.
And think about it. The club's already got a football.
Oh yeah.
Came with what they called him was Red Dog, but they changed his name. But we have a football. Man, I look. The Deke era is painful to watch as a cartoon. Even drunk, it's painful. But Gridiron was such a part of it. They kind of have to do Gridiron.
Yeah, and they did Scoop and they did Salvo. So they're kind of. I mean, I always lumped him in. He's lumped into that game.
And Pathfinder and Topside. It's like that whole Deke group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, man, that's good call, Rick. Gridiron.
Yeah, he's a cool one.
I'm kind of surprised we never got Stretcher. I don't know what you would do for the hat, but
the hat is not that different from the one that we're looking at on the hardball that we didn't like. I mean, that hat you could probably.
It's actually better for Stretcher. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, that I think they could do. I think we'll see Stretcher. I feel like we will.
They could skip his little sled. I know everybody loves that. People like that. Nah, I don't need his little Jetson scooter. I always like the fact that I don't know why. I always liked medics. And I think it's kind of cool that Joe's had like a pretty good crew of medics. And Stretcher would be kind of a fun addition. Yeah. Mike, are there any Tiger Forces that we're missing?
I don't know. I got to even research. There's probably the international ones I'm missing on. One thing I wanted to point out, I know we talked about the 12-inch on the con set, but for people, and I know there's probably not that many people who watch the show for 12-inch, but I did join a couple of 12-inch groups on Facebook, and I did post the show tonight. But if you're a 12-inch collector, the club is doing the black and white version, as it was first aired on TV. It's going to be the sailor, the Marine, the soldier, and the pilot, which if you are signed up by next Friday, March the 16th, you can choose the 12-inch soldier as your free figure, which the deadline is next Friday, March the 16th. This is the picture of the 4. I really think, I'm going to get them because, I collect 12-inch to a certain degree. I just think the whole, in this picture that they show, they said that these are the actual pictures of the figures in hand. So this is what they have in hand, and they look really good. So, if you're a 12-inch collector, I'm sure you're getting all the 12-inch stuff you can possibly get your hands on right now. So
I think those are going to be surreal in hand because, like that photo, that they did a good job with it, and they did a great job with these figures. But because it looks like you're looking at a black and white photo.
Yep.
Do you guys remember the Marvel Universe Captain America they did a number of years ago, and he was black and white? He was a Comic-Con exclusive.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A buddy of mine hooked me up with him, and he is the weirdest damn figure to have in person because it's like you'll have your row of figures, and there's this one that's just black and white, and they did such a great job with the subtle colorations, and I have a feeling that's where the club's going with this one. And man, that's gonna look slick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna look really good. I got another question for you. Stuff I wanted to hit. I know we're almost at the 2-hour mark, but and this was brought up on a Facebook group, and it went very, very deep. And then the moderators finally deleted the post. But someone I actually know, he purchased some items from somebody. But when he got home, he got all these packages, and he opens up the packages, and then he gets to one. Opens up and just hits him right in the face. There's a big barrel of smoke smell.
Oh.
After he had bought some stuff. Now, when he purchased the item, the seller never mentioned it comes from a smoke-free, pet-free home where I am a smoker.
Yeah.
Do you think, as a collector, when you're purchasing, is it on your part to ask, or is it on the seller's part to tell?
Man, I think it's a little of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's the old caveat, buyer beware. So I think if you're a buyer and you don't see that on there, ask. Especially if it's like an eBay or a Facebook group, just go ahead and ask.
Right.
Because I've done that where I bought something on eBay and I get it and I'm like, oh crap, when it comes, because it's not exactly what I thought. I'll go back and look at the description and I'm like, well, crap, you're right. I'm at work right now and I have this Doctor Who Dalek that sits on my desk at work. I bought this because I thought this was one of the 4-inch scale ones. No, my 4-inch Joes would come to about here. He's a beast. I got a good price on him, but I didn't read the description all the way. And so now he lives at work because, but yeah, I think it's kind of up to you. Now, if they say smoke-free home and you get it and it smells like the inside of, a bowling alley, then it's on the seller.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it went into really, some of the comments got really nasty, and then just, how the Facebook groups can go, man. They can start off all nice and calm, and they turn 360 and go away shit.
Facebook it's weird because Facebook, you use your in theory, most people use their actual name. It's not like the old forum days where, you can have names like Leonardo T. Dragon or what have you. And, and you can be like, go to hell, you jerk. And then afterwards you're like, it's okay. Now it's like, man, like people on Facebook groups go from 0 to like, I'm going to kill you and, and skull fuck your dog and all this. And it's like, holy crap. Like just the level of ratcheting up. There's no middle ground. But yeah, I think it's ultimately before you pull the trigger, you can always ask.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're
agree.
going to call it an episode there tonight. We're at the 2-hour mark now. It was a good show. I'm glad we were able to get their books out and about, hopefully to some more listeners who weren't aware of it, and hope they pledge and these books get funded. If y'all have questions on it outside of us, go to the Kickstarter. There's a place for comments, and they are very good about answering those questions on a very timely basis. Like I said, and Fred has said, we both funded these books, and I think me and Fred are both on the same page. We pretty much fund a lot of the books.
Yeah.
I know I do. Anything G.I. Joe, I've been funding because it's, in some aspects, it's kind of a dying breed, and, you want to get everything you can G.I. Joe as possible.
Yeah.
When you can. I know I do. If I get, like last week, I had an opportunity to buy a collection. I bought the collection because especially here in Arkansas, does not come very often where someone offers a collection to you. So I just get my hands on whatever I can. And I know come JoeCon, I'll go ape shit crazy, especially on Sunday if there's some sales. Because I'm driving this year, so.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Well, I got to drive because I'm actually buying. I put the deposit down for a Defiant. So I got to bring my SUV in order to bring it back. I'm afraid to get all excited.
I think we need to do a special of Mike unboxing the Defiant.
Well, it's not going to be in box. It's already a used one.
Oh, then that's going to be an @JoeCon video of I need to find who you're buying it from, and I want to intercept them. So it's like, we do that whole extreme makeover thing where Mike's standing there and there's the, and it's your Defiant, and Mike's like, ah!
And I start breaking down in tears. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
You got to roll the dice and crank it up, too, and lift it up. You got to roll the dice. I rolled the dice the other week, and it's every once in a while, I get a little scared to do it, but you got to have fun with it. So you got to crank it up when you get there.
The guy I'm getting it from, he bought two at the same time, and he's worked one together, and the crank was one of the things he replaced in it.
Oh, nice.
That's what you want. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a nice, clean one, I think. So it's only missing like 8 pieces.
And you don't really see a lot of repro parts for the Defiant to repair that either. I'm surprised.
No. Dude, like some of those parts, like just the umbilical cord for payload too, like, those things you could spend $100. Some people ask $200 for it, just for the umbilical cord. But there's like one of the doors at the top. I can't think of the name of the freaking door, but one of those doors, it's almost impossible to find it unbroken.
Damn.
I mean, it's almost impossible.
Well, if you think about it, the Defiant came out in what? It was 86, 87?
87.
That toy is 31 years old.
Yeah.
Like that, we are so far beyond what anybody thought was going to be the original lifespan of those, to still be used. Yeah. And especially something that's holding as much weight as the Defiant. Because at least a Terradrome, and I'm distracted by Rick's Terradrome back there. That sits on a table. Aside from the clips,
Fred, it is night and day. It's I was worried about the Terradrome being shipped and stuff like that. And it is, there are parts of it that are fragile. It is night and day. The Defiant is fragile. Yeah. This one has some fragile parts. It's got some fragile parts. The Defiant is kid glove. You got to use just your common sense and just go slow with that. When I want to be there when Mike gets it, because I'm going to be like, Mike, don't do this, and Mike, make sure you do this, because I don't want to see him break it.
In some ways, that's kind of awesome to have. I'm going to film the two of you doing this, because I think that's kind of awesome that, because I don't own a Defiant. Just full disclaimer, never have. It just, that was a little outside of my realm. But the fact that here, Rick is someone who came into a Defiant not as a kid, as an adult collector, and so is is looking at the Defiant not as a minty, fresh out of the box, brand new, just made a few months ago. No, this is like 30-year-old plastic.
Yeah,
like there's stuff you got to be aware of.
Yeah,
kind of like the, it's this. We're not talking the suspension on the Striker where it all blows out and you can still do stuff with it. And one wrong crank in that thing and it's done.
Right.
Just remember, don't put the wheels on it unless you have some books or something underneath of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually have a whole stack of 2x4s out in my garage. I'm going to take with me. I'm going to put it underneath there on the way back. So.
Oh, crap.
Well, everybody, we're calling it a show there. Thanks for watching and listening to us ramble. And again, hope you go do the Kickstarters. You can find Fred everywhere at JBL, and also be on the lookout for his next video reviews, hopefully soon.
I got the video ones done. I got to actually get the written ones finished. Never going to happen.
And then you can catch me and Rick next Saturday night on Cybercast and Galactic Gumbo on the G1 Hextron channel. So, and we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll figure something to talk about by then. So, thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys. Yo, Joe.